goodness. What if you could place the art of photography into a nutshell? Doesn't seem very possible, does it? It is possible. Just like Mother Nature, simplicity is divinity. Things are a lot more simple than we think they are. Interestingly enough, human psychology operates no differently unless you have a twisted, sick mind. And many people do. To them, art is like something really gruesome. You know, they're like turned on by really perverse things. Those are the exceptions to the rule. Talk about art. Art and artifice, and get into prime mover, self-mover, which I've talked about endlessly months and months ago. What if you could actually define the photographic art as far as the image made? We can talk about the composition, the lighting. Of course, the lighting actually can define the image far more deeply and emotionally. Like I said, you can make a beautiful woman look like a witch with the appropriate lighting, or should I say inappropriate lighting. Or you can make a, generally ugly person look very intriguing, interesting to look at. I mean, some of these wrinkled up faces are, shown in amazing lighting that actually moves people that would normally be repelled by their face in everyday life. So what are the three things that everything in the universe is force and motion and inertia and acceleration? Interestingly enough, human psychology is no different than the way electromagnetism, or should I say magnetodielectricity, is. Oh, that's not possible. It can't be that simple. You can't define art through three simple principles. Well, indeed you can, and each one has its own power quotient. It is not quantifiable, but it is qualitatively substantiated that certain ones of these fall into different levels of power. And as far as, and interestingly enough, it's the same way with field theory. What would those be? It would be impel, repel, and stop. Force and motion, inertia, and acceleration of the human psychological involvement in a photograph, and that which halts motion. So you actually have the impelling, which is not motion, it is relative motion to form or position. Impelling, this is actually the most powerful. Impelling, this is actually acceleration. Being drawn into a photograph. The psychological, emotional nature of a prime mover of a photograph is not existentially, not empirically, not physically so, but psychologically and natively, undeniably the most powerful aspect of a photographic art, that you are impelled into the photograph, because it is permanent, and whatever impels is permanent in that it is always impelling. You're drawn into a picture that is unique in some special way. The actual composition and the nature of the photograph, you actually linger on it psychologically. Now, there is some mix-over between these two. There could be an image that is repulsive but also impels, so it could actually drive you both accelerating towards the photograph but perpetually repelled from it. Some instances of that are like some gruesome war photographs that are both repulsive. You're never drawn into it completely like a beautiful photograph that draws you in completely right into the nexus of the photograph, but which is repulsive but at the same time accelerative of the human psychology of looking at and letting the mind hover over that photograph within the psychology of looking at that particular piece of art form, such that it does accelerate you towards it, yet it is repulsive insofar as that it is something, say, gruesome, not like horribly gruesome, but emotionally disturbing, yet you are still impelled or drawn into it, like some hurt child laying naked in a battlefield. I mean, it's repulsive. You're not drawn into it completely, but you are drawn in and at the same time repelled by it. So there is crossover there, obviously. So there's not like one here and a block and one here and a block and one over here and a block. Obviously, they're a crossover. But fundamentally, there are only these three. Force and motion, inertia and acceleration, and that which stops. The second most powerful is a repelling picture, that which induces force and motion in the psychology of the human. It could be a really gruesome photograph like a war photography, photojournalism. It actually does move you. It is a moving photograph. When something moves, it is only movement from its relative position. Movement in acceleration does not require any force. You're actually drawn into it. Like, it does not take any force at all to drop something and let it accelerate towards the surface of the earth. That is not force in motion. That is inertia and acceleration. Force, something actually repels you away from it. It still moves you, and you may linger on it, and it continues to move you. When it comes to the photography and the psychology of that which defines the prime mover versus the self-mover, and the denotative definition of what the nature of that photograph is, there is no difference between +5 of inertia and acceleration into the photograph, or -5, where you actually are walking by, you see the photograph, and you repelled -5. So +5 and -5 in the art form of photography is equally valid. 5 is 5 is 5. It doesn't matter if it's +5 or -5. And that which is the art form that actually defines something that is moving, that actually defines what it is that, and it could make a definition totally contrary to what you intended. You know, that's under perception of the composition that you made or you happen to capture in like a war photograph, something gruesome. I mean, it could be any one of 1,000 other things. That's the second most powerful. The third most powerful is a photograph that causes you to stop. It's the least powerful because it neither repels you nor impels you. Photographs like this are like very neat and amazing, or they could be sexual in nature. Like there's some really interesting nude photography where someone's wearing like a peacock hat, and it's a totally weird. It's something you've never seen before. Macro photography, human beings are not used to seeing a picture of something, like this. It stops you, but it doesn't really impel you. It could. Like I said, everything has overlap, but it merely stops you. It's like, wow, that's neat, and then you move on. Like some half nude in a beautiful setting with perfect lighting. It's gorgeous. It impels the human psychology to stop and look and gander and peer at it, but you're not moved from it or you're not moved towards it. So the net change in the psychology of the movement is 0, but it did stop you. And to halt you, of course, is a type of force. Actually, it's not always a force. It could be pure net zero acceleration, where you're actually halted in your forward movement as you're passing by and you see something that goes, wow, okay, and then you move on. But anyway, everything is reducible to those three qualities with overlap, not only between one and another, but it could be all three at the same time. But really, the art and artifice of the nature of art in photography, as well as other art forms, is extremely reductionistic to those three primary principles, of which human consciousness and psychology is mirrored perfectly in field theory and every primal principle that governs the universe: force and motion, inertia and acceleration, or stopping. The most powerful one is to be impelled or accelerate. The second most powerful is to be repelled. And the ones that really are the most powerful are the ones that both impel and repel. You're accelerated towards, but you never actually reach it. You actually fall into orbit around a particular picture. You never fall into it, but you are still repelled by it. Those are some of the most powerful. And some of the most powerful photographs are like that. They draw you in, but you're still repelled by it, but you keep getting drawn into it. And you think about it later, and you're like, wow, but it's like, oh, but wow. There are a lot of really, 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 really powerful photographs that are like that. Like the Afghan girl, it is both accelerative for the reason of her eyes. She's really dirty face, she's like a refugee. So you're still repelled by the nature of the slavery that these women are in, and the fact that she's living a life of horror, even though her face isn't cut up or anything like that. And it's an extremely moving photograph. There are a lot of examples like that. And those are the three powers of art and artifice: the prime mover, the self-mover, which I've discussed ad nauseum in other videos. There are those photographs that impel, those photographs that repel, and those photographs that stop, of which there is overlap between not only one and the other, but all three combined in various combinations. Simplicity is divinity, and all art and artifice can be reduced to those three primary principles. Yes, they can be. Isn't that amazing? Who thought that you could define art in a nutshell? Some people say I repeat myself or I talk too much, which I certainly do, but I was able to basically toss all of art into a nutshell involving three principles only. And that's pretty good, isn't it? Sometimes I actually can be short and concise. If you like this video and drop a buck or two, tell me to jump off a cliff. Doesn't make any difference either way. Whatever makes you happy, whatever tickles your pickle, and I will catch you later. Alright? Bye.